flipped a coin, okay? You and me. You and me. Coin flip is sacred.
Y'all ready for a show today, baby? Go time, baby. We've been waiting all week for this. This is where it happens right here, man. We man up, we stand up. We man up, we stand up. We all we got. We all we need. We all we got. We all we need. We all we got. We all we need.
Hit anything that moves. We're playmakers, man. We the best, nothing less.
You don't like this? Trust me, you don't like it.
We're between the white lines. This is football. Welcome to the big league. I won the toss. I took the football. Drive it down their throat.
Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your skull? Hey, every season is full of defining moments. Let's make this day a defining moment for us in our quest. Game time! Game time!
Welcome, everybody, to episode 21, the third episode of season 2 of the CoinFlip. I am back after a long week off, sort of, kind of, with a lot of golf, a lot of heat, and as you guys saw, a little bit of IVs and fluid taking them at night after some long Tulsa days in the sun playing golf, but I enjoyed it. Rick did a great job filling in for me. I appreciate it. We got NFL Week 3 on hands with probably a lot more to talk about than the last 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks of numbers, 2 weeks of analysis, a ton of injuries with some key injuries to discuss. We're still going to keep our same format and rock the 45, 55-minute type of angle. We're going to go action-packed. The man that hosted last week and my partner, as usual, Tyler Tambo at Toe Tag and Tam on Twitter. Tyler, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, man. Back with my boy here, Gup. Rick did a great job filling in, and I joked with him last week. Getting to be the host was nervous or nerve-wracking, I should say, for me a little bit. But the best part was that I could control the situation, so I couldn't get put in a Mayo spot. If you were listening, I said I couldn't get put on the docket for rankings. I got to put him on the spot a little bit, and that worked out well. So thought it was good. We went over a lot of great stuff. Had some good calls last week. Very excited to get into this week, as you mentioned, with a lot of injury news, things to monitor. It's going to be important to take everything you feel and hear here and take it up to Saturday with us on the Audible as well.
Yeah, I think it is. I actually didn't even get to watch you guys until we were driving or heading back from San Antonio. And the nice thing I took away from it is most of the things that you guys were key or big on, I was as well. So I felt like, well, at least I didn't I was big on Lamar, Mark Andrews, and I did have Hollywood in my second best lineup. I only did 3 lineups because I wasn't playing much on Sunday because I was out of touch. But and several other things that I did that I thought would be kind of maybe chalkish. It really wasn't, and you guys were on it. So it kind of worked out all together. How was week 2 for you overall? I don't know, betting wise, but definitely DFS. How'd you do?
Yeah. No, I only really did. I don't bet much football as much as I probably should in some cases, but same thing. I don't play enough cash games. That's what I know. So it was another down week filled with close calls again in the qualifiers and stuff. Those are the ones that I've been chasing a little bit, getting excited for. I feel like there's a more realistic opportunity, as crazy as that sounds, to hit one of those in something like the $100 King of the Beach 134 man, where I can have 3 or 4 entries in it versus chasing the Millie Maker and whatnot. But haven't balanced the ledger just yet, but I have had some extremely close calls, and process has been sound. That the guys, Sutton fell on the 2-yard line a couple weeks ago in week 1. Eckler got an overtime TD with a San Francisco TD that week for 2 qualifiers, and then last week I got 5th in another. So you got to come first. If you're not first, you're last. But Ricky Bobby style. But it's coming along, and we'll get it back this week. I'm confident.
I did. I was very light in DK because I knew I was going to have the time to put into it. But I did okay. Had some pretty good late afternoon, second half afternoon sweat. I was still at 1.5, 10x my input. The second half of the afternoon games kind of cost me a little bit. I finished just under. Then I doubled up on Sunday Night Football, and then fell a little bit back Monday. I had Njoku as my captain in my bullet lineup, and that did not work out at all. Other than that, my lineup was fire. So if I go anywhere else, I'd have been great. I almost cashed with him literally getting 0 points as my captain, if that tells you how good the rest of the lineup was. But betting, obviously, kind of preached at bread and butter. I think that's becoming more aware that people didn't realize that's kind of how I got my name is NFL betting. I think a lot of people are getting the behind the scenes look of how I dissect every team, home field, my power rankings that I've used for 3 or 4 years, but I've made them public now and kind of deep dive in with the community. They understand my process, and there's a reason why it's where I make my most money betting wise as far as volume. Obviously, the big golf hits help. But 11-4 on the season, on the real season for NFL. I only had like 2 or 3 plays in the preseason. Didn't do well on those. College football had finally a winning week, positive week. I think it was 4-2 overall. So bankroll wise, betting covered everything. And I'm way up now. I'm up on the year in football overall. Up a little bit in NFL, down a little bit in college, but I think up overall. So I think people understand that that's key to be a part of, and it all comes in all the packages, right? You get it. If you do the content package, all the plays are released on there as a part of it. So I think when most people come from DFS and then see that, they kind of don't realize that that's part of the deal. So I think we will hit on that a little more before we get into kind of the whole wrap up of, the contest selection, that kind of stuff for this week. We'll hit a little, our sponsor, we missed it 2 weeks ago for this season, is Super Draft. Doing another big contest this week. I think it's had overlay the first 2.
It did,
Tambo,
yeah.
I know it did the first one.
I played it last week and cashed quite a bit. Like it was actually really solid, and I'm looking forward to that again this week. I know that the fantasy draft tournament has the guaranteed overlay, and I'm going to play some on that as well, likely. But the thing about the Super Draft is it's fun. It's a whole new style. There's no salary cap, but the multipliers start sort of figuring out what does this equal to points if he does this, and what would he take to pay off value? What does that stack look like as a whole? Oh my, I can get this guy, and this guy, and they're all 1.65x or more. Then you can really gain some points if that stack hits and work your way up the board. And it's a very balanced payout structure. So it's really solid, and the site's awesome so far. I've had a lot of fun with it. Yeah,
and I'm going to try it this week. It's nice because you're not going up against the guys that can throw $3,000 at a showdown contest and just use 300 lineups and make money, which that's very strategic, and it's a great job for those that do that. Or a guy that can put $100,000 in Sunday, and you and I both know plenty of guys that do that, and that's a one way to do it if you got the bankroll. This allows you to be even with the field, and it's not big money by any means, but if you're starting out small, want to kind of build bankroll on the side, you could almost use it as your cash strategy and then play GPPs and DK if you want to. And with the code GUP, you get $10 bonus dollars. You put your first 20 in play, which includes that 10. And once you put it in play, whatever you win from that, if you win $100 the first Sunday, you can pull that $100 out free and clear. So that's the best thing. Smaller pots gives you leverage to use a little bit more. The link's on our website. And then when you go there, it's the code's GUP, but that's all there if you need to get it.
Oh yeah, $10 free, like you said. I forgot. That's a perfect way to do it. Load $10, get the 10. The tournament we're talking about is $20. So just play one lineup, and I guarantee you'll go back. Like that's what I did. I played one lineup, cashed pretty nice there last week. I think it was 4x or something I got on it. And now I'm back in this week with 4 or 5 lineups right out of the gate. So you don't need a bunch. It's not a huge tournament that's going to fill up. So I forgot about that. Put the bonus dollars right away and play, and you're already good.
Yeah, and we may get one of our content providers to try it out this week and see if he could do kind of like Preston did with the NBA, and maybe do a little short write-up. It's so small that you don't want to give away too much leverage, but we're so busy with the other stuff. Maybe get one of our guys to get a little in depth for the guys, because they sponsor us for the entire year this year, which is awesome. They kind of put their neck out on the line being new and with us, because we're by no means self-admittedly not one of the big boys on the NFL side, football side. I do think we've gained some market share this year with some of the stuff we've shown improved, especially the tool packages that continue to improve daily. So it's nice, and I think maybe it'll be a long-term relationship with us for them. There was guys like us that had to get behind, DK or FanDuel or even, draft and fantasy draft, back at that point, that now still benefit from that. So our community will help support them at least for this whole season, and hopefully they want us back. As always, Fanshare Sports, same link on the site, 20% off with the code GUP. You can get the pro advantage. I obviously release my ownership, but it's very much like the golf one. It's just cut and dry what I think it's going to be. These guys have in-depth tags. They listen to God knows how many football podcasts to get their information and data and all that. So they have an in-depth knowledge on the ownership side. If you like that stuff, it gives you another opportunity. If you like it, 20% off. They have some content as well, a little bit different than what we do. So a good partnership if you want to, gain something there. Another season-long partnership we have is PFF, Pro Football Focus. I've talked about it before. Link is on the website. You get 20% off. Gupsquarter.com/affiliates, and you can So that's like for the deep dive guys. So if you're just an all-out analytical, kind of like Fantasy National for golf, you can go at it. There's not anything you probably can't find. I'm offensive line, defensive line grades. They're already starting to do mock drafts for 2020. Really in-depth information overload if you like that stuff, where we have the high-level stuff and high-level tools and some good tools for the day-to-day guy. But the guy that just wants to eat it all up, they have great stuff. You can even load your custom fantasy football leagues in there with your settings. Some of the leagues automatically load up there and monitor your whole analysis of your league in their site if you have the elite one. And it's pretty cool if you're all into that. So if you have like 10 leagues or something and it's hard to track because you got to open and shut, you can load it all in there. You can load your other teams in your league in there as well and monitor everything. It's pretty cool if you get that all into it. I don't have enough time. I use it because there's a couple things I do like to review, but it's worth it to me. Lastly, rate and review us, iTunes, Instagram, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. We will be giving away future giveaways. I'm going to give away 2 of the ALS shirts that we're doing for a fundraiser. We talked about it Monday on the Smash Factor. It's been a big hit. We've had a ton order. You can order them through September 30th. It's a pre-sale only, so we're only selling what we get. We're covering our cost. The guy providing it, who's also a member, is providing the cost of the shirt and the actual design and all that. So everything outside of cost is going to this GoFundMe with Kevin Berry, who's I talked about it on the pod Monday on Smash Factor, a lifetime member of ours, the first ever fighting ALS himself, and so that's what this cause is for. 2 of those will be given away during the Audible on Saturday. One of those shirts will come from an iTunes review on the CoinFlip. So I don't know how many we'll get. You guys have been great since I've pushed that, but it's the biggest help for us is to rate us and review us 5 stars. Tell us what you like. If you don't like us, give us the 5 stars and then mention some comments and we'll work on it. But the 5 stars helps. Joking there kind of, but I will pick a review from the list that's on there. And if you've already done a review, I never take those away. So I still keep them in the pile and I add to them. So if you've done one, don't feel like, I already did one, I'm kind of screwed. No, I keep them. Even if it was back, even last year, it's still there if you didn't win. So that's a great way to get a free t-shirt there. And we're going to have huge giveaways coming out with our pod after September 30th. We have another big announcement that you guys are going to love. And there'll be some giveaways with that announcement. So stay tuned on that. The Listener in the League is up. The winner of the Listener of the League this week will get $50 of merchandise credit in our GC store. So take a look at that. I don't think it's full yet. It did fill last week. We had to make a late push, but make sure you get in that. And JB and I, after you hit it, we will get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with us. We'll review the lineup next week. I don't have this week's lineup because I don't even know if I think I played it, but I didn't have time to pull it up. But maybe by the end of the pod, when Tambo goes into his, I'll pull it up real quick. But winner will get $50 merchandise credit. So that's awesome. Tambo, quick contest selection this week. We don't have to go in depth like we normally do, but with injuries and unknowns and chalky wide receivers and potentially chalky quarterbacks, we'll get into your feelings there. The new slant contest-ish. I know you kind of hyped it up on Twitter a little bit. What is anything major change with your strategy compared to this week, or last week compared to this week, or the first 3 weeks comparatively to those kind of stuff about? If they're just chalk over the board because of injuries, do you change your motive strategy or just stay the course? And how does the new contest that was out there that's kind of a bigger slant, I think is the way you labeled it, what do you think about that?
For the injuries, there's so much to watch, right? So there's the KC backfield. I think Williams will be okay, but there's him and McCoy who are sort of questionable. Williams, the knee contusion and whatnot. The Philly wide receiver set, obviously that's banged up. They're day-to-day, which who knows what that means in their setup with even Goddard is out, and Alshon, Deshaun Jackson is going to be out for sure. All this stuff. So you've got to watch that. And then with Dallas, they've got Gallup who just had surgery. So you got Dallas with Devin Smith in there. The shower narrative, quote unquote, with the Pittsburgh Steelers with Mason Rudolph and Moncrief having another drop ball last week that turned into an interception. So you've got James Washington there to follow along with. So there's so much value out there. For me, the biggest thing with contest selection, and I hinted at it earlier, was I want to go more cash games. I've had a good start to the season, 2-0 on both sites, playing more cash. I don't really play cash in golf as much, and I probably should with, Kenny being my partner there and going over everything with that. But I'm not as interested in it. But in football, I think it's all these values and clear spots that you find that help you to leverage your builds and be able to get yourself in a good spot just to come top 50% in most of these things, or in head-to-heads, and that's what you really balance out your portfolio. So definitely adding more cash games, subtracting more high field variance stuff. I'm still going to stick to my plan of what I want to do, my goals, and what I have as far as the Qs are concerned, and getting after $1 million, that sort of stuff. So that's just who I am. I'm always going to play that stuff. As far as the new slant goes, and yeah, I posted about it. I saw Britt Devine from Roto Grinders who posted about it. I didn't see that till after, but it's sort of the talk because everybody on Twitter, we're always talking about these balanced payout structures, and some people are for them and some people are against them. I tend to like when, if it's a high dollar, lower field, smaller field, I don't mind when they're going to pay a 75,000 pool and put 15 grand up top for 20%, because it's a smaller field. You have to pay more to get in. I get you want to still get something returned on your money, that sort of thing. It's more so these bigger fields. The real weird thing about this one is that they made it a 150 max on 5,400 entries. Like, it should have been a 20 max, beggars can't be choosers. I get it. We asked for it. We got it. It's literally the perfect setup of the 10% of the pool to first, 10% of first to 10th, up to 20% gets paid out. It's like 20.6%, and they get a minimum of 2x. Love all that. The couple things here, I don't think you need to max it. I don't, Drewby pointed out on Twitter, I don't think people are going to max it because it's $6,000 to win 20K. Now, there is some foolishness and some shenanigans that I call that could go on where people put 20 lineups in of the exact same lineup and just try and train it and take it down because it's 5,400 people. If you've got the nuts, or do 4 lineups, and play 5, 5, and 5, and put 20 lineups in, and do 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and put 4 of each in and try and get the top prizes that way. I don't disagree with that, to be honest. I don't mind that strategy. Me personally, I'm probably going to play 5 to 10 in it just so that it gets filled. It's not going to have a hard time filling with 5,400 people and that structure, but I got no problem treating it like a 5 max and just throwing your best 5 lineups in it because it is cool to have that payout structure finally here.
No, when you first posted it, it implied to me, I thought 10 max, 20 max, whatever, 50, when I saw the 150, I was like, well, that don't make no, same thing. I was like, that don't make no sense. Why would you, there's no need at that player pool. And so it's like it's like typical DraftKings. They get like 90% right. And then there's always one thing where you're like, that don't make no sense, but at least it's out there. Maybe they'll take feedback. They seem to be they hear the feedback enough. They seem to make some adjustments, and I think that may help.
Yeah, we got to applaud that. They've been doing good things. Like you said, beggars can't be choosers. I honestly think just naturally, to Drewby's point again, that it will become like a 20 max. It just becomes of, no matter, even if it was a 20 max, I still think that strategy of training it up a little bit isn't a bad thing. I think people will want to win 3 or 4 prizes if they hit the top with those lineups that way. So I do think that can happen. I think it's just dumb that they put it that way. And I don't even think they probably meant to. They just figured, why not? But in the end, it's just going to naturally become like a 20-30 max type deal for anyone who's playing it to a significant amount.
Yeah, that's why I thought, even if it's 30 max, 600 to win 6,000 small pool in NFL, that could be pretty appealing to some as well. So when you say you're going a little more cash, and we'll move on quickly here after this, if you're a guy like me, so forget the dollar amount I'm playing, but you tend to do a 1 to 3 max or maybe 1 to 5 max and have success there. Do you consider, I read an article earlier today where one guy, a very good guy, and like he considers if it's a 5 max or less, depending on the total pool size, in his mind, he considers that a cash game, even though some people call it a GPP. So I think like the $200 single is like maybe 270 people. He considers that game a cash game in his mind, even though it's not true double 50-50, because he feels it has, and people call GPPs and MMEs, they mix up the lingo, and most people get it wrong. Like a GPP, all it stands for is the DraftKings guaranteeing the pool, which is almost extinct because I don't know the last time pools didn't fill up that were the original slate, but I still get it because I have to put it out there to make sure people know we're guaranteeing this pot. MME is a multi-mass entry contest. So by definition, it would technically mean more than one multi-mass, like big, you can enter X amount.
It's mass. Mass stands for a lot. Like it's not a 3 max, it's mass multi. So you're going big.
So where people will say, I'm in a GPP, okay, which one? They go, well, I'm in the $200 single. And I'm like, well, that's not, well, first, it is a GPP, so you said it correctly. But the way you implied it when you asked me was that I'm in a big field with a lot. And I was like, well, you're like, I don't want to say my strategy is cash because I don't really know how to define cash in NFL. And I really don't golf other than just, listen to Kenny or whatever. But my strategy in there is one of, it's still paying out 20 something percent, which, 50-50 is 50%. It's obviously 30%
Right.
less. But because I know I have leverage to everybody in the field, and it's a small pool, and it's not like 20. What do you consider that?
No, I'm cash to me. I'm not disrespecting whoever wrote the article, but it's anything 50-50, double up, head to head. It's 50%, 45% or more. Like, it's literally, you just have to have a lineup that beats a certain portion of the field, almost half. To your point, and that makes the best point to bring up the example is, let's say, the $200 single entry. By technicality, GPP, it is a GPP because you're playing in a guaranteed prize pool. It only pays 27% or under type deal. The thing with that is that's what you should almost be leveraging. Like, I'm not the single entry expert, and I'll use a cash type lineup in a 3-max build, but in a single entry, typically, 50% of the pool is using a cash style entry. So you automatically know you've got leverage on the field if you move away from that. So unless you feel your cash lineup, or whatever you want to call your main or your cash, is truly the best lineup, then that's fine. I'm just saying there's an easy way to get away from it just by stacking. For example, they might not even be.
No, I agree. I agree with all that. My point was, if that's your success rate is high, like me, my success rate is high in those. Instead of going and playing cash, would you tell it? So I'm talking about listeners now. Say a listener out there and they play $20, and they go, hey, I do well at $20 singles or $50 singles, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Would you encourage them to still do cash if they have a proven, they track it, they know it? Because my point would be to say, hey, if you're well at single entries or 3-max entries, I would encourage someone to go play cash just to get the guaranteed double up, because I don't know their whole portfolio.
Right.
You're moving to cash because of a portfolio stance, not because of strategy and contest. And that's what I don't want people to get confused about. And I have a different opinion. I have a different strategy because my portfolio is different.
Right.
And I don't play the big MMEs very often, in NFL especially. And so I want people to get a little bit of both sides and say, hey, you can do both, and both can be successful. And we both have been successful. But in NFL especially, you find a niche contest you're good at. Like, don't think you have to go play cash if you just want to split it up. But if you want to, go ahead. It's fine. But your deal is you always play 50, 75, 100 lineups in some kind of fashion. And then this gives you a chance to not guarantee yourself 50-50, but maybe cover some of that leverage on a Sunday.
It's going to be higher. Like you're talking about the sports betting world, a 57% guy is, pretty bang on, and anything higher than that is phenomenal on the season. I think in cash, there's a real advantage to get that you can get well above 60%. I know people that legitimately for multiple years hit 70%. So you can hit this stuff. Kenny last year did well, and I know it was a record year in golf for him in cash, but it was like 85% of cuts made that equated to something silly in that percentage number. I'm, like you said, balancing a portfolio where I'm in extremely high variance tournaments that can lose, let's use the $5 Q with 150 max entry, that's $750. And you have to come first. I mean, the top 5% or 10% of the tournament gets some money back and doubles up or whatever, but you're not going to get very many in there because you're aiming like shotgun style to hit one, and you could come up short and you're down 750 there. I can reap those benefits back in cash. To your point, I mean, it just makes no sense. If someone's got a strong track record, like let's say yourself, if you're always crushing a $200 single entry and always getting in the top 20 percentile, you should be mass entering cash games, head-to-heads, everything. You're going to be, realistically, even head-to-heads can be more variant in that standpoint because someone can just beat you mano-a-mano, man-to-man, one-to-one. But in those single entry double ups that are big fields, or those mass double ups that you can enter a bunch of lineups in, if you're consistently hitting in the top 20th percentile, load up cash games, because clearly that lineup's going to do well in there, and then keep it in that GPP because that's sort of your upside deal. Well, yes, all that other money will only double up. Like they always say, make sure you put your cash lineup in a GPP. It's the same thing in reverse. If you're always putting it in a GPP and you're hitting high, up top 20%, top 30%, get it in as many cash games as you can, because your hit rate is so strong that you'll at least double up, so that if that GPP comes up short and hits the top 30th percentile and just misses the min cash, you'll make it all back and live to fight next week in those cash games.
Yeah, and I told the guy, I don't know if he plays in the GCFFL or not, but I said that's a good gauge to see. It's a 32-man deal, even though you're playing a head-to-head for the week. I think I finished last year. I did really well, and then the first 2 weeks, I think I finished 5th and 6th or something, which tells me, I don't say that's the end-all be-all for a cash representative, but I'm always in the top half normally in that kind of deal, and so that tells me I have a strong knowledge to building a one lineup where everybody else is building one. So if I'd have thrown that lineup last week, I finished top 5, I think. that lineup in a lot of cash, my assumption is I probably would have done well in most on cash games, 50-50 and double up. So that's another gauge for everybody that's out there playing something that's quote unquote free weekly, the GCFFL. You've already paid your league dues. So that gives you a chance to kind of say, well, how do I do it? If you're like finishing 29th or something in that stuff, then you're struggling, right? So
right. Yeah. You got to work on your construction and figure it out from there. Yeah, definitely. And that'll help shape your game or your strategies moving forward and contest selection. Definitely.
Let's quickly let Tambo give us his 120 seconds or less showdown perspective from what doesn't look very exciting on paper, but I have a few small opinions, and then we're going to hammer the Sunday main slate in about 20-minute rapid fire, get after it. So talk to us about it. What is going to be an interesting game for a couple reasons, and I'll follow up on you. Let us hear it.
Yeah, it's another stupid game is the first thing I had noted down. Just another stupid primetime game, right? It's Tennessee, Jacksonville. Nothing excites me. There's talks of wins, high wins. There's talks of, that always equals a little bit less as far as output goes. So, you got to be careful on some of those longer passes. Maybe the kickers, they don't run them out as much if the wins are that high where they won't kick them from 50 yards because they'll just try. It's just much better opportunity and advantage for them to check it down. So I'm looking more at the running backs, the check downs, the defenses than I am the kickers and the big play guys. So it'd be contrarian to have some of those guys like D.D. Westbrook or, maybe Corey Davis, who people hasn't really done much yet, but he's always seems like he could be a guy for Mariota. But, with Minshew on the other side, I definitely like the defenses. I definitely like Henry, and I definitely like Fournette. Not really high on the deep threats, like I talked about. I just don't see it anyway from these quarterbacks. They haven't shown the capability yet. Delaney Walker would be another good one, check downs, that sort of thing. So I'm looking more at guys like that and then mixing it up and making sure you're telling the story when you're building those showdown lineups.
No, all great points. I personally think some may underestimate Minshew's long-term capabilities. I think I watched him a lot at Washington State, the old Pac-12 at night when you're sitting there kind of sobering up or whatnot, from either a good or bad betting day. But and I was prepping for NFL, so I'd always watch those games. I think he will do well. I'm interested to see what he does in this spot versus a veteran team, a good coaching, getting a little more comfortable in the system. Does he compete and keep the Jags close? Vegas thinks that he does. So I do think defenses are going to be high plays, especially probably captain type. So if you want to be a little different, there's a couple of great avenues there to be different tomorrow if you just want to take a chance, which on showdown slates, I try because it's so wishy-washy and many arrangements going to hit. And I don't do 150, I just don't do it in that scenario that I'm going to take my chance and hope I hit like 6 or 7 the whole season slates. So I'm going to do something that makes me uncomfortable because I feel like it gives you an advantage in the showdown slate. But most people love those. We hammer the showdown. I mean, the slack is nonstop on the showdown slate. So it's a huge benefit to be in that slack. We have the tools. If you guys are up there, that gives you the in-depth projections for every single slate. We have them up. And then the slack does a great job of giving back and forth and injury updates and who's in and who's out and thoughts. So some days when I can't get to it, I'll go read the last hour of the slack before the game and I can get some good ideas for college football and NFL. They do a great job on top of our content. The main reason everybody's here, the Sunday main slate, rolling with the playbook. We go position by position, plays, fades, value, sleepers. 1 each for the quarterback and tight end, 2 each for the wide receiver and running back. Only 1 fade though. 1 for the D, 1 play, 1 value for the D. And then just say, some of those just goes construction wise. There's no reason to do 3 and stuff for defense because it's just limited attacks. Tambo, kick us off quarterback, play, fade, and value.
The play and the fade are very correlated and in a way in the same, so because they're in the same game, but they cancel each other out. So the play is going to be Lamar. He's cheaper than Mahomes. The fade is Mahomes. Spoiler alert. But the play is that because 1, he's cheaper. 2, he's on the road and should be coming from behind. I still think KC puts up some offense against them, but the rushing upside that he's got is, second to none. So to me, I got to play him for that discount. Maybe it means, Mahomes is much more contrarian in that, but all his pieces are priced up, right? Even Robinson gets the bump. Kelsey's up there when there's so many cheap tight ends. It'll definitely be contrarian. I like it for a game stack. So the only place I'll have him, it's not a full fade or anything, but I'll be way underweight regardless because I'll only have him in a few game stack lineups. And then my value is actually, it looks like Cam Newton's not going to be playing this week. And maybe this is crazy. Maybe it's, a little bit of the sheep mentality, following what people are saying. But I like this Kyle Allen play at 4,000 for Carolina. I actually like that game because of the pace. We know what Arizona's been doing. We know the amount of plays they're putting out there with Fitz and with Kirk and that sort of thing, and Kyler. But for $4,000 on the other side to get a starting quarterback that can check it down to Christian McCaffrey, short passes to Moore, Samuel, Olsen, guys have beat up this Arizona secondary big time, and especially with tight ends recently. There's literally all those plays. I don't mind a game stack there, but even by himself at 4,000, if you want to just pair him with one guy or let him run naked at 4,000, you could do a whole bunch more with quarterbacks. You can do a lot worse than that. So Lamar is a play. Mahomes is a way underweight, or what you want to call a fade, and then value would be Kyle Allen for Carolina.
Oddly enough, I'm not against you on any of that, and I don't have any of the same likes, but a little bit. So it's unique in a sense. Obviously, if you don't know, or maybe you do know that we don't really discuss much or at all, hardly ever. We don't, not because we don't want to, we just don't have time. But it does help the show be unique. I was hung up on the Ravens game. I was interested to see if you were ever going to hit it, and you hit it right off the bat. To see, that was my exact initial thoughts. Obviously, Lamar coming off of another performance, and I wonder if public will finally, well, he's got to fail sometime, and this will be it. And the price savings, it'll be interesting to see where ownership, the final ownership, kind of shakes out with those two, and the pieces, as you mentioned, obviously gives you leverage. I kind of agree with all that. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how we go Saturday by the time we get there. My play is Winston. I love the game. I love the matchup. I think could slide under the radar on this slate. It'll be a theme of the night for me with that particular game per se, but maybe he's going to be chalky. I don't know. I probably won't ever play a chalky Winston per se, but if he's going to have some leverage, and I looked at it for year and a half now, and quarterbacks just seem to be so spread out. You can always correct me if I'm wrong, but I never, even Mahomes last sleep wasn't like crazy owned, even though you kind of expected him to go off. They just, with the value and the places you have to go elsewhere, it seems like the default is to kind of fit your quarterback in at the end, try to stack if you can, but not real worried if, you don't have the key quarterback, but which you can leverage if you do it right. But I definitely think Winston playing the Giants, I graded him up after Daniel Jones is starting because I think Jones will come in. He played excellent in the preseason. I think he'll get Barkley involved. We obviously know the Bucs D is okay. It's nothing to go, and I think I'm hoping for an unlikely shootout with those two quarterbacks that could pay off big if you play them. My fade's Jimmy G. I'm leaning the 49ers to cover that game. I call my pause there because I don't know how much is being talked about in the industry, but I know guys like Adon and myself that watched probably almost all of Rudolph's college games, and then we watched James Washington equally with him, and myself watch those guys, go toe-to-toe with my Sooners. It is huge for me, which I'll mention later, to see if there's any, insight or any hints that show that Washington's going to actually get solid time on the field, because he hasn't as of yet. But I can't imagine them not want to put those two on the field together. So that's going to be a key for me on that game. But I think it could be a slower paced game, maybe some turnovers, defense. I don't think Jimmy G's got to go out there and light it up. And I kind of feel for his price, there's so much other places to go that he was my fade. My values is Kirk Cousins. Really, I felt cheap for the spot versus Oakland, home. They always play great at home. They always score well at home. They cover at home, and they're 8.5 point favorites. Raiders D's shown kind of two versions. Even last week, I started out real good, and then Mahomes lights them up. I think Cousins and them know they're going to have a dog fight in the division with the Bears and the Packers. And so this is a spot where you're at home playing an 8.5 point dog whose team's, solid but young. They need to go out there and succeed and pass the ball well. And for 5,100, I just think that's a huge value spot that maybe not a lot of people will be on. And then you can do some combos, as we'll get into a little later, off of him. So that's my value this week. Go ahead and kick us off with the running backs. 2 plays, 2 values, and then 1 fade in this range.
Yeah, I like your couple calls there. I got something on Winston later, so I do like that. I actually downgraded Tampa's defense because of the same reason. I would have liked Tampa's defense against Eli, but
100%.
now I kind of like it a lot more because they're cheaper, and we're going to talk about defenses later and how priced up for this week they are. And I like your Cousins call too. They just didn't fit, and when you got a $4,000 guy, I like Cousins to Diggs. I also like kicking off running back and segueing. I like Dalvin Cook. Anytime I got him at, right now, last week he was under-owned. He'll probably get back to ownership again this week after he was so high owned the first week, but very clear they want to run the ball. I definitely think they will throw more at home. But I like some of the options with them that I just talked about. But with Dalvin Cook, 8-point favorite at home, they want to run him. Easy play for me. He's still cheap enough. I think he's 7,800. Fair deal there. Zeke, another one. I get it. The weird thing is about last week against Miami with New England is that none of the players really went off. It wasn't Sonny Michel. It wasn't White. It wasn't Edelman. It wasn't, AB had a good game, and I'll talk more on him later too. But it was just the defense. The defense smashed. So that'll be a decision at $4,300 when we talk about Dallas. But I still like Zeke. I think this is a spot he eats. I think we see the breakout game, 2-3 touchdowns at home, no problem. We're not even at betting yet, and I think they cover 21. I just think Miami doesn't care about anything right now, and we'll see what happens with them. But I think these numbers are legit. I think normally we don't see numbers like this, and that's what's dictating some of the pricing. But I do like Zeke. As far as my fade goes, I got Aaron Jones for Green Bay. Had a big week last week. A good matchup still because it's Denver, who we saw just a couple weeks ago with Josh Jacobs run all over them. But I think not a lot of people are looking at the numbers fully. You'll see that Jamal Williams has still been heavily involved. They're splitting quite a bit of the work, or it's a fairly decent split. So much so I'm a little bit concerned, and his price did jump up a little bit. So I'm not as keen to go there. We'll see how the week goes on. I think he'll still be lower owned. I'm just not interested in going back and chasing that. And at running back is a spot that I don't really like to fade the chalk too much because normally it hits, right? There's not too many times. Kamara last week, but there was still 4 other chalk guys that did hit. So we know who's getting the workloads. We can see that, and coaches don't change from that very often. Honestly, I don't even have 2 value plays. I got one, and the reason is there's just so many options, and I'm sure they'll come up through our stacks and things that we bring up. But the only guy that I'm even really considering right now for GPPs is Miles Sanders. I liked him week 1. He's got a few more snaps now. He's busted out a little bit. And the thing there is I think everyone's going to be so focused on the wide receiving core, the Ertz play, if Dallas Goedert's out, and going through these guys. And they're not even going to be thinking about that running game when Philly's a big favorite at home. Why wouldn't they just run the ball out and get it done? So it doesn't necessarily mean these receivers are going to pay off. So I only got Miles Sanders for right now. It'll be in my article as I add more guys, and we'll be on the Audible on Saturday. A full loaded at the rest of the plays, but running back, not too much value for me, Gup.
Yeah, I was, which I was kind of disappointed that I didn't win more on Sunday because I was 100% on Cook. I loved Cook last week. And listening back, I didn't realize how under-owned he was going to be, or I may even try to do a little more contest or something because I mean, I've been on him since preseason. Also with the boy Will Bryanson, he's had me on his pod. He's we both talked about that. Just loved him in general and thought he was gonna have a great year, and so far he is. So I'm still on him. I'm on Eckler. I think it's a great paced game. I think that game could turn into the shootout of the day. Kind of, I don't know if that's under the radar by any means, but defenses or lack thereof, not because of sometimes most of it's injury there, but especially on the Chargers side. But Houston obviously gives up some points, but they can score. So I like it to get a guy like Eckler where they're going to be maybe pass happy if they get behind, or constantly in a game that should be fast paced. If the defense is, especially Houston's on the road, not at home, I also like that. So he's kind of high up there, but I don't mind Eckler at all. My original, I was flip flopping on fades. Zeke worries me because of the potential blowout, but equally, he could have 150 and 2 touchdowns before halftime, and it's probably still worth it. So I don't know if I'm going to go there because I think there's a ton of value, but one of my value plays comes in a second. But the starting New England running backs, if you want to call them that, they're the same instance. So I'm kind of in that games going, I would rather play Zeke because he's the man while he's in, with Sonny Michel and White, and then now Burkhead, who's a potential value play if he gets more time late. White, if you play one of those guys and they get ahead and they hadn't got theirs yet, you're in trouble, right? So for the price they are, I wouldn't touch the starting New England running backs unless you're just dead nut set to say, hey, I'm in on Sony or James, and I think they're the ones this week, and you better hope they get it, because if they get up big like they did last week, in the second half it's all Burkhead, you're going to be pissed. But it could play off, but that's my fade situation. I like Sanders as well. He was my first fade, my value. As I was doing this, I was like, I need to, moving for next week, I already made the notes, is to distinguish value as a certain price so that we can go hunt, because it was kind of like, what does everybody else consider value? So you don't want to toss someone out there and they go, well, what? So my second one was kind of Carson. from Seattle. And I was like, well, I don't know if 5,900 screams value in this slate to me, because there's so much good in the 7s, 8s, and even Barkley's in play.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Especially with Jones. I upgrade Barkley with Jones. I upgraded him and may do it again. So I was like, 5,900 is pretty cheap, relatively speaking, for a running back too, where a lot of people like to go up top. But that's something I made notes of, and we'll dictate that starting next week. The key with Carson is depending on how you think that game flow goes and his touches. Are the Saints going to have any chance on the road to compete with Bridgewater and their weapons? Or are they just going to, shut down? Obviously, I like the Seattle line, even kind of before the Breeze. We knew the Breeze was coming, but I kind of had my ranking set where that was a potential spot. The 4 seems light to me. I've seen it as high as 4.5, but Chris Carson's one I think that could be a kind of under the radar type play relative to the spot. And that's kind of how I define my value. So it's kind of the same spot as you. There's not like a ton of cheap play, but definitely a value there. I'll roll in and kick off the wide receiver play, give you a little more of a break. I like Keenan Allen. I think this week's a week where blindly I would have said I'm almost done paying up with real high wide receivers, because if you just find the right spots, there's just so many passing offenses and so many attempts in a game now compared to even 3 years ago. And that's somewhat anecdotal. I hadn't done the back looking at it, but there seems to be a lot of great spot wide receivers we can pick and pluck and just hope they hit. If they hit well, like last week, I had a few that were, 45, and sometimes they could be chalky, but you just got to be different somewhere else. Similar, we just had our golf talk earlier. Like, it's okay to be high on a certain spot. There's plenty of options in a football slate to differentiate yourself. So I don't know how high Allen will be, but kind of back to the Eckler deal, I think they're going to get him involved. A lot of targets. He's got a great matchup, versus Houston. 7,000 isn't a horrible price for him. His upside, we know he can just have a ham game, and he can go 170 and 3 quick light. So especially in a potential shootout. So I'm grading that game as a higher pace game right now. We'll see what happens by Saturday, and that's why I have those guys in play. My second one, I had 2. It was real wishy-washy. Diggs is one because I like Cousins. Diggs or Thielen, really, because it just depends on if you want to save the price difference. But I'm interested to see. I want to see if you get thoughts after this or where you're at, or if you have them at all. Because of like Winston, my reaction was Godwin, but all of a sudden now I'm getting Evans, who I downgraded before the season. I told Will back me up on this because we kind of went back and forth. I think I saw the text for him because he kind of laughed at me. I said Godwin will outscore Evans this year. And I still believe that. But if you're going to give me a low-owned saving $300 Evans, I'll take the chance he has his big game in that spot. And so I think that's a play this week. If you're going to go that combo route, I think you may get leverage on Godwin. I'll see if you think that's true on ownership-wise. You're a little more in tune on some of that in the NFL than I am. But my fade is A.B. Brown. I don't like that situation for him. He's still in the drama side. They could be up 28-0 after the first quarter, and he may not see the field, right? He's still kind of lingering from getting loose and all that, and he may just shut it down for the game. And if he doesn't get involved early and they're up huge, I know he did okay, last week, but if he doesn't have the touchdown, it's not like it doesn't justify the cost for him. And so I'm fading Brown. My first value at wide receiver is Aguilar, assuming he's good and goes and ends. I played him in Showdown. He did well late. I do like him this week. I think he's 3,900. I'll verify that in a second. But yeah, and then this is a 1A or a 3A, 3B value, 2A, 2B value. I like James Washington, and I'll try to clarify it Saturday if I get wind that he's going to get a lot more snaps. I'm on him for that price. If not, I like Shepard. I assume he's clear protocol. He's going to be healthy and back in. And with Jones there, I like Sterling. That's a potential combo. What are your wide receivers, and any comments on my thoughts there?
We're almost the same. And like I said, we don't talk about it. So I got Allen as an obvious chalk one, 7K. The guy's getting end zone targets, 13 targets, 15 targets, whatever. He's just lighting it up. He's at too good a spot. It's whatever. You got to get different elsewhere. You can put him in the flex or something to finish out a lineup. And if you had to pivot off him, you could pivot off him late because it's the late game. But 7K, you can do some different stuff with them that way. You can stack them up 3 ways with Rivers and Eckler. You can do whatever you want to try and get different with them. But either way, he's just crazy cheap. He's too cheap. One that I'm opposite on you on is AB, because I think a lot of people, this is where I see the Dallas game for sure blowing out. I definitely think that, New England wins here. I'm just not sure by how much. But the New York Jets get beat by the pass game. AB's played something silly like 28 out of 71 snaps, and he got 5 end zone targets. Tom just went to him over and over and over. So yes, the touchdown helped him, and the price is hard to pay off. But what if he had got another touchdown, right? What if he gets to play 65% of the snaps this week and gets 5 end zone targets again? Like, I don't know. To me, I think it's going to be tough to predict that offense. I don't think people are going to like to do it. Therefore, it makes it a little bit more of a contrarian play off of Allen or somewhere in that range. So I like both those guys. My fade is Watkins based on the Mahomes theory, priced way up. Too many, there's other guys around him. I think Baltimore D, I still worry about that game. And when we talk about stacks and game stacks, I think that's actually going to be the most popular game because the obvious, you got those 2 quarterbacks being the highest priced. Everyone wants to game stack after last week. They just saw the KC Oakland game stack work, but that had way more to do with the Oakland value plays than it did with KC Oakland being some massive shootout. These guys were priced at 4,900, 4,400, and 3,300. Of course, it was easy to game stack it with Mahomes, Watkins, and fit in, a Kelsey or whatever else you want to fit in. So I don't like that game as much as some of the others for game stacking. So off Watkins, values were identical. Aguilar, I thought it was 3,600, and then the pivot, I guess now because he's going to get so popular, might be J-Jaw, is Arcega White at 3,500. Who's ready to get going, man. He says there was a full article on it today of him talking about hanging out with Wentz off the field, on the field, getting ready to build up that relationship so he can get out there. If he gets out there and runs wild, he could be a really nice tournament pivot when everyone's on the safety play in Aguilar. And then James Washington, I joked earlier, you mentioned it. The whole joke on Twitter is the shower narrative. Adam Levitan brings it up, guys, talking about how he's seen his unit in the shower. Well, yeah, for sure he has, but I'm saying that's not why I'm going to go play a guy. The connection matters. I think what I saw last week is as soon as Rudolph got in the game and then saw people and some other analysts talk about it thereafter, is he really moves the needle for Pittsburgh. He's the same as Ben or better, not as a quality quarterback, but as ability to change that offense and get mobile and make some different plays and get on the run a little bit and make some moves where he doesn't just stand in the pocket like Big Ben does. And Big Ben's just a warrior. So he's hard to bring down in the pocket. So it doesn't really matter if guys get to him, but clearly that's got to him over time. I think Washington with Rudolph, and here's the second part to it. You talked about seeing if he's going to get more snaps. Moncrief, who's been absolutely horrendous, ended up, I don't know if you recall, he had a pass thrown to him that he missed another catch, very easy, right between the numbers, tipped it. It became an interception. They yanked him, and I think it was like 30%. I think his snaps went up by 30 or 40% at that point for Washington. And so he should be out there a lot more this week. He makes sense to be out there. And he's fast, man. He's quick too. So if Rudolph can get out in the flats and get open, catch him out in the flats open, he's gone. And $3,500, he takes one play. I should note before we move it along here, not to ramble, but with him, I really only like him as a one-off. I don't think that him and Rudolph go for 2 or 3 touchdowns and that's like a sneaky stack or something. I just don't see that as happening. And I don't like Garoppolo, who you mentioned earlier. So I like a little mix and match in that game. Maybe get a Kittle and a Washington across from each other for a mini correlation for Kittle that's priced way down. And that pretty much segues right to tight end, Gup. So I'll take it over. Do you have any more comments on those wide receivers? Or are you thinking,
No,
we're pretty much aligned?
I do. I do think the one thing about the Dallas game that I mentioned, because I was going to say it when you talked about Zeke, is that there is a positive for Zeke is that historically, they got a different coordinator, so we'll see how this plays out. When Dallas gets up, they shut it down. They milk the clock. Like, especially betting wise, I'd be more in lean to play the Patriots on the betting number than the Cowboys because last year in the second half when they were up big, they just shut it down. They just wanted to get the game over with. And so the back door is open there, even though the Dolphins are god-awful terrible. We know that. I'm not going to bet it. I'm not going to bet it either way, but it'll be interesting to see how Kellen controls the offense with a big lead.
Kellen Moore, man, that's the difference. You said it. You're on board here. That's why I'm with it. I think Kellen Moore stomps them. I think what's the over under in that, like 48 or something?
Yeah, but what we haven't seen yet is does Garrett take over the game tempo? And is he the game manager? He's not the play caller. We know that now, which has been great. But if they get up, does he go, hey, he's done, shut it down. Don't you throw another pass, you're out. I mean, that we don't know that. I'm just saying there's an assumption out there that who's controlling the game once they're up, not who's controlling the play calling. So it's something to consider. It doesn't take me off Zeke at all. It may actually favor it because they may leave him in there a little longer, have a long drive in the third quarter. He gets 6-7 touches. Then they're up 35 or 28, and they may shut it down then, as opposed to they're not going to come out in third quarter firing. We don't know. The old team,
Yeah.
I know they wouldn't have. So it's something to keep an eye on for future games for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And Kellen Moore, I think you hit on the head. And also Jerry Jones. He doesn't necessarily call the shots either, but he does because he's Jerry Jones, owner of the damn team. And I'll tell you what, they paid a lot of money for Ezekiel Elliott. What better than a perfect game when he just saw guys like the Patriots blow them up to say, wait a minute, go out and get my guy 4 touchdowns today because I want to show the world why we paid that money for him and why we didn't look like the bad side of, we broke and paid Zeke. Guess what? He's worth more money than anybody in the league. And Melvin Gordon and Lev Bell and all those guys can sit on the sideline all they want. We paid the real deal, and here it is on Sunday and put 4 touchdowns up on them. So I do still like that game to blow up. I like Dallas to put up like 40 points there. So I still don't know if that'll hit the over. That was going to be the joke because it might be 41-0 and we shut it down. But moving on, tight end, easy play for me, especially if Dallas Goedert is out, is Zach Ertz. He's underpriced. I do like Kittle there as well as the GBP pivot, so to speak, because he's even cheaper, and he's got that sort of one-off I can do with Washington and whatnot. But Ertz is too cheap. We've seen it, time and time again when they've got injuries there, he just gets blown up with targets. Doesn't mean that he's going to go off, but if you get that many targets, you get that opportunity. Very safe play with a lot of upside. So perfect for cash games, double ups, that sort of thing. Mix him into some of the stacks with, like a Wentz, a J-Jaw, and an Ertz. And run it back. You could do something like that. I don't know. I do like that game, though, a little bit. My fade is going to be Kelsey. Fits the mold. You guys hear the narrative. I'm going down that street this week. He's just priced up too much. There's so many good tight ends this week. Again, we've also seen it weird where with defense being priced up so high that this week especially, that, the tight ends, you seem to kind of want the cheaper guy. And there's a couple, and I'll get into my value in a second, but there's a lot of guys that you could do a double tight end this week with Ertz, Kittle, Andrews, Ingram. They're still all cheap. Ingram, but Daniel Jones should be another guy that picks up targets, that gets a little more accuracy put in there into play, and where he's going to want to check it down. So like you're upping Barkley, I could see upping Ingram as well, and Shepard, who you mentioned earlier. So some interesting plays there. My value is going to be O.J. Howard, who everyone's done talking about. And I told you earlier when you said Winston, he just didn't quite fit the mold of my playbook over here. But I do like Winston as a whole. I like Evans, who you mentioned. I like Godwin, who you talked about comparisons, and you can play them together. I love stacking that game up. We're talking about how, Daniel Jones makes it so much better on the other side. You've got Howard there. Everybody's off him, and the guy's less than 4K. That's an insane value. We just haven't seen it yet. The guy has talent. We know he does. Certainly think this is a spot. They're all the lowest price we've possibly seen. So more on that later. Who do you got this week at tight end, Gup, and what do you think about some of the things that I mentioned there?
Yeah, so very similar. So we can go quick here, but Ertz was my play very easily. My fade was Kettle just because I think I have more options, and he's not as crazy as Kelsey on the pricing, but I don't want to pay that price for the defensive reason you mentioned, and the reason why they did that is because they know I don't want to call sharper, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, spreads dictate some of the pricing, and you're going to be put into a wall to go. You want to go cheap on defense, but if the Cowboys or Patriots really do win by 25, 30 points and those teams don't score more than 7 and you don't have that D, it can put you in a big disadvantage to an extent, depending on your contest and all that. But that's why I think we see some pricing up. So be interested in there. Plus, you got some rookie quarterbacks, et cetera, et cetera. So Kettle's a guy I like, but I would just fade for the price because I want to save somewhere else. Where my other one was Howard with a 1B. That if Allen starts at the quarterback you mentioned for Carolina over Cam, I like Olsen as a value for the same reason, right? He wants to get comfortable. He's going to be hitting Olsen. If Cam's in there, then it's Howard for me is my best value. If Kyle Allen plays for Carolina, I like Olsen as well. But either one of those are good plays for me. Defense is quick and easy for me. You're going to play the Cowboys or Patriots. That's pretty simple if you want to do that. It looks like the obvious play. And the one team I kind of like just because of the O-line can't keep the guy from getting hit is in maybe a high-paced game, a lot of passing is the Chargers. Maybe you get they could lose the game 35-28 and have 5 sacks and a pick 6 very easily versus Houston. So the scoring may not matter, but they could get a lot of defensive points. And they were kind of the one I saw kind of if you don't want to go Chargers, Patriots that I kind of like. What about you?
Yeah, Cowboys, I'm finding enough value to pay up for them. And I think it's, like you said, it's not about just the 40-0 win because we know that the points don't matter as much as the turnovers and the sacks and the pick sixes and whatnot. And I'm not saying they're going to go out and get 2 at the end of the game like the Pats did or whatever, but I mean, between them and the Pats, it's pretty clear there's enough value to get up to them. Then go ahead. I believe in that this week, especially. And I think, there's some talks on Twitter about that price not being, that price, those high price Ds haven't paid off in the past. Well, we haven't even seen them like that in the past. We haven't seen a $4,300 D very often. And yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars have paid off before at 3,800, 3,900 when they went out and smashed teams. This is totally different. These quarterback situations, these teams don't even want to play football. Basically, they're going out with secondary, third stringers, basically, to go out there. And my value is $1,100 cheaper than Dallas. You can pick up the 49ers. I told you I only like Washington as a one-off, and that's because it literally takes one play at $3,500. Mason Rudolph, like I said, he can get a little bit more mobile. He can move around a bit, but he can also chuck up some bombs, and they can easily be picked off. So I think the 49ers have shown true in the first 2 games. I think that front looks pretty good. There's no real set injuries that I'm worried about there. I think Pittsburgh is going to be down, with no Roethlisberger, they're feeling a little bit down, and they could just come out and get smashed by the 49ers from a defensive standpoint. So I don't mind them for $1,100 less than the Cowboys.
Yeah, I could see that. I think if you want to take advantage of some of the rookies this week, if the Jags were playing, you could go Houston on Sunday, and that's a target we talked about earlier. But this scenario is the same way. He could go off and have 350 yards and 4 touchdowns passing, or he could struggle. We don't know. He's going on the road, first time as a starting quarterback. We'll see how that plays out. So that's definitely an option to pivot for sure. That wraps up the playbook. We're going to ride into the stack attack. I'll lead it off. We go 2 stacks, 3 or 4 guys at each team that we like. You can kind of put it together by the pod, so it's kind of wrapping it up before we head into betting. Mine is Minnesota and Tampa Bay are my 2 stacks. So Cousins, Cook, Diggs, Thielen, any kind of combo there. Winston, Howard, Godwin, Evans, combo it up there. Those are the 2 I'm on. What are your 2?
I like Dak and Zeke. Like I said, I think they pound them 40-0. I think the points come from Zeke. I think people don't like to stack quarterback and running back. I think too many people are going to be on, Mahomes or whatever when you can have Dak for cheaper. And obviously I love LJ, who I talked about, but I don't need to go there again necessarily. But I do like the Dak Zeke combo, just those 2, and get sneaky and put them with the defense and just say that they do all the damage at the goal line early, and then the defense shuts it down from there. Just like, last week, if you had sort of like a Tom Brady Brown, it wasn't tournament winning because there's way more pieces on the Patriots to go around than on the Cowboys, especially with the Gallup injury down. Don't really see any big bombs to Cooper or anything. I know Devin Smith might get some popularity after his bomb last week and his cheap price and down as a tournament pivot. But I do like Dak and Zeke. And then my other one you mentioned already, but it's that Tampa Bay. I didn't know that you'd be talking about it the whole time, so I won't hammer it. But like you said, I said too, you can put all those guys in a bucket, play 2 of them, play 3 of them with Winston, whatever you want. He's the cheapest price he's ever been. I don't think he'll get too chalky. Like you mentioned, the quarterbacks don't normally. So as long as you're mixing up your stacks 3 and 4 deep with that, that's already going to be contrarian enough. Maybe run it back with some of those guys we said we liked on the other side. Be different that way and set up a good game stack lineup.
No, all that, we've kind of hammered that home. So I think everybody's got enough there for Wednesday night DFS. We'll get into the times for Saturday here in a minute. Betting contest, give me, super contest lines, Super7 lines all came out, a few hours ago. Who are the 2 against the spread lines you like as of right now?
Two that I love. Like I said, sometimes I should do a little more betting. Maybe I'll be 0-2 here, but I feel confident in these ones. I like Indy -1.5. I think that you talked about it the first couple of weeks and on the Pick Six pod with Will Brinson, you talked about how, maybe this injury isn't as bad as people think. Brissett's not a complete joke. And, it's starting to show a little bit. That team overall looks a little bit better as a whole. Atlanta off the Sunday Night Football, emotional, last-minute win with the Jones touchdown. I could see them have a little bit of a letdown here and Indy be able to roll at home. Also, Cincinnati +6. That's, to me, one that I'm looking at mainly for a look-ahead reason. Buffalo definitely looks like the much stronger team. Totally. Their defense is amazing. I wouldn't say amazing, but it's definitely solid, and they're sneaky good and under the radar. Not really sneaky good. Their stats show out too. So they're just under the radar. They're underrated in my opinion. But if you look at that, that's a look ahead spot for Buffalo. They play New England next week. If they won this game, actually both teams would be 3-0, assuming New England gets the job done this week. So I do like the spot for Cincinnati +6. They've been throwing the ball a lot. They're targeting, John Ross. They've got Boyd there. They've still got pieces they can use with Mixon back. I don't think it's going to just be a complete blowout personally. So I like that line at +6 for Cincinnati.
Yeah, they're on my short list as of now. I already released one to the guys earlier, and I have at least two I'm going to do tonight. I like your Colts. They're on the short list as well. That play. My two is I like Seahawks. I even like this. I had it mentioned before the injury. I kind of because while things are going Sunday, I mean, I kind of try to get my rankings in line, and I would say it was kind of posting. Didn't know how long he's going to be out, but I had assuming he's playing line and assuming he's not playing line. I had both kind of predicted, and so I like the number. They're at home. I think Bridgewater. I mean, that place to be a little crazy and rowdy, and they want to prove something. That they're here to be contenders in the NFC. So I think Seahawks. Probably close, but that's football, especially NFL. 7-point win's a win, so you just got to take it and move on. My second one's the Giants. I thought the line would adjust a little more for Jones, but I know the Vegas guys aren't going to pay much attention to the preseason. Just go, he's a rookie quarterback starting, his first game on the road. So that number's Florida with 7. It's at 6.5 for the contest. I love it at 7, but I don't hate it. I'll still probably be on it at 6.5 as a potential strong play for me for the week. Who is your one outright dog of the week you think could win this week? Obviously, we're not going to hold anybody to this, but at this point, who do you like as a true dog?
My boys, no homer, Ravens. I think they're better than people think. I think they're going to slow the game down some. Hence why I told you I didn't like the game stack as much. I think they know how to. They're well coached. The defense has been strong. The offense has been excellent. I think Lamar's going to live up to it and show out. And I think that Mahomes can have a little bit of a letdown game. It's not like it takes much. He's been going off. You can slow down a little bit there. I think we'll still see high scoring, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if Baltimore could squeak it out something like 27-24. And you say maybe that's a lot of points, but like I said, they're priced up for that in DFS. So betting side, I'll take the Ravens as dogs.
Yeah, I mean, outright, my initial's the Cardinals, but the lines now come back off. I don't know if there'll be money line dogs if it's not Cam. So that's kind of a wishy-washy deal, but they're true dogs right now, and they're dogs in the super contest. So that's kind of one I have. If it comes out Del Suez, I'll pick one out and kind of toss it in Slack or something, but I probably would be on them on the money line if they're going to be. I like them even with Cam I think they were +2.5, +3. So I definitely like that number. And if someone can get it out there, I'd probably still jump on it if you can get them as a dog. Survivor pick. Obviously, we do one on the show each. We're not holding anybody to it at this point. There's too many injuries, too many things going on. Most of the time, this one, I played it both the first weeks because they're too much of a favorite that I wouldn't come off of them. Are you going chalk here? I assume it's going to be a pretty chalky week on Survivor. Who's your Survivor pick for the pod?
You know who I'm taking. Team I've been smashing all day here, Dallas. Let them just survive and move on. I don't even care. It's a smash spot, so I'm going with Dallas.
I'm on Dallas as well. I played New England last week for this one.
So did I.
The one you had. So they'll go away. People say you can use them in other spots, but this isn't the time to get cute, especially if you're in a true Survivor. There is no rebuys. You just survive and move on. That's why it's called Survivor. Hint the name. Tambo's been great. We're gonna wrap it up here. 9:00 my time. I think we're gonna finish in. I know we're gonna finish in fairly close under an hour, right at it. Any final thoughts before we take it home?
Just a reminder to everybody, so similar to yourself and old Nagels Bagels there talked about it on the Smash Factor. It's the same for this coin flip, right? This is Wednesday. The tournaments kick off on Sunday. The games kick off on Sunday for what we're talking about here. So these are initial thoughts, much like Kenny and I do on the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast on Monday for Golf. You guys talk about it on Smash Factor. I'm not saying I'm not sticking to these things. I'm just saying that's why it's so important to read the articles. That's why it's so important, Stack Attack, Tambo's targets, that sort of thing, what you put out, check the rankings. Get in Slack, be on the Audible. All those things are important. If you're a member of Gups Corner, you get even more advantages because of that. So with that said, like I said, get on board with Gups Corner and get to the Audible because there'll be a lot of changes this week. More important, the most important, I'd say, week of the year so far, just based on how many injuries we've seen go.
Yeah, and some of the things we mentioned tonight. I know you mentioned, I remember who you're talking about. You talked about red zone targets, and that stuff in our tools is so easily available now that it helps my process. That stuff I used to have to kind of dig for. I mean, the way we lay it out, if you're on a game or a stack and you go, well, who's getting more red zone how many red zone targets does Brown get and how many red zones is this getting? We have that, right? It's right there. And then total targets and the shares, it's all in the same place for our tools package. So great access there that we should probably do a better job of referencing, because we in the Slack, everybody loves it. They talk about it. It's been great. It's been a great hit so far. In case I don't know what time you guys wound up going last week. I know I was still on the course because I didn't even get to retweet or follow, but we have changed the time to 6:30 Eastern. Our goal is to try to hit that window of a 30-minute-ish time frame before everybody gets settled in for the big Saturday night game. This week, I know we got O State, Texas. You got there's a couple of big games that night, and we'll be coming off. I think Michigan, Notre Dame's before that. I don't have the times in front of me, but there's no point in us doing a 9 o'clock because we got families. We're trying to get stuff done. Nothing's going to change in that time window. So I'd rather wind it down, get to unplug, and then come back in Sunday morning and fire up the Slack. And both of us are in there a lot of the time as we're not, tweaking by that point. So, that's another reason being in the live member, because you get the live access on the YouTube. And if you can't make the 6:30 Eastern, we have it stored on the site for you. So you can go replay it anytime you want. So it's not urgent to get there. It helps because we need feedback and we need questions. It's your time. We don't do it for us. And I'm going to put a comment out there about the golf one tonight. Like, if we don't want to have the live chat, like you guys, if we don't have people participating, I know people say, well, I'll watch it later, but there's no point in us going in there and wasting our time if we don't have interaction, because it's not for me and Tambo at this point. It's to tell you guys, hey, what's the questions? It's Saturday night or it's Wednesday night. And if we don't have anybody in there participating because everybody's just watching it later, there's nothing to watch. It's just me and him talking, which is just a replay of the pod. So we need interaction. I'm not saying I'm kicking it to the curb. We're not going to do it. But I'm not firing up and wasting more time of our time, which we got to content to stuff and build for 4 people to be in the live chat. Like, it's for y'all. It's y'all's deal. So it was a little late going tonight. We did finish strong in the golf one, and I'm sure football will be great because it's a little harder because everybody's fired up with family, but we do need some help in their encouragement to keep us going and get fire at the questions so we get the good conversations going. So we'll see you 6:30 Eastern there. Right now, you can join GupsCorner.com. Use the code GCFFG, Gups Corner, Family, Friends, Green Screens, for 15% off any package, monthly, annual, content analysis, our standard package we've always had, or the football tools. We're going to roll out kind of a soft live version of the golf stuff for hopefully tomorrow, and then roll it for 2 full weeks free. So if you join a content analysis package today or tomorrow for the 15% off, next week and in 2 weeks of golf, you'll get the free preview of the golf tools to check them out. So it's a great time to join. That code can be used for any of the packages. It can be used for all 3. If you want to buy the content and analysis, the golf package, and the football package, you get 15% off each. So you're going to save on all of it. It's not just one. So that's great as well. My final thoughts is, hey, it's been a long few weeks for me, the team. I appreciate everybody jumping in. No beating of the chest, but I think we're building one of the stronger units in the industry. Kenny Kim's joined. Josh ADHD is going to fire up. We're building golf tools. It's a little slower process than you like, but it's going to come out and be great. Tambo, myself, the queen behind the screen you guys don't ever see, keeps everything going that you guys see, you use every day. She's the one that fixes it if it breaks, along with the rock of the Gups Corner, Josh Burkett. You guys know that. He's behind the mic now, and he does a fantastic job. Help us out on that shirt sale. It's cheap. I think it's $18 or something. 100% goes to a great cause. It'll all be donated to that. You guys can, and the shirt's fire. I think it's Chris Ferreter. I hope I said that right. I know that's close, that he's the one that designed it for us and really inspired with Josh to put that thing together. And I really love it. Huge announcement, like I said, around October 1st-ish pod time. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be some fun stuff going on. We're not done yet. Now's the time to join. You get through all the fall swing. We're hot in football betting. You still have a ton of time to use the tools if you want to use the football tools, and golf's only going to get better going into the 2020 season. We'll see you guys Saturday night, 6:30 Eastern. Have a good night.